Very good evening to you. Sorry, as always, just a little bit rushed because that never happens in my life, does it? Yeah, welcome to the daily wrap here on Forever Sports. My name is Stephen Kirker, and over the next 20 to 30 minutes, running through the best of what's happening in the world of sport. And in fact, you can get in touch with us here on Forever Sport. All you got to do is, in fact, our poll today, go check it out. Is Riano Beholds the right man for SA Rugby CEO? He has been appointed just at an interim basis. We'll go into that. He has got a pretty rich and varied history as a rugby administrator, and he's been involved in some pretty big projects. But is he the right guy for the job? Let us know here on Forever Sport. But let's go through what has been happening in the world of sport, and let's go through what's been happening in rugby, shall we say? I'm just going to have to pull it up in the meantime. A big victory for Australia in India. They capped off a fine victory in today's second test match. In the second test match, which was happening in indoor, ended, I think today was, I think it was day 3 actually, and they picked up a 9-wicket victory. Very impressive from them because it was a very difficult, pitch that they were batting on. And sorry, I'm just going to pull up the scoreboard now. There you go. Thank you very much. He says, but that didn't work at all. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so let's look at that scoreboard. Now, guess what I've been shopping for? Yes, I've been shopping for gutters. Yeah, you can't get away from this. I have to sort out some proper scoreboards. But Nathan Lyon was the star yesterday when India bowled up for 163 in the second innings, and Australia needed only 76 runs today. But I think it was in the first innings. If we go back to the Australian first innings, they lost their last 8 wickets or so, or 6 wickets, for about 11 runs, 197, 192. Where are we? 186. That was the 5th wicket. So the last 5 wickets fell for 11 runs. So you knew wickets could fall in patches. India battled in the second innings as well, only getting to 163. And remember, India were also dismissed for 109 in the first one. Not an easy pitch. And then there was a bit of hope for India, the home side, when they dismissed Usman Khawaja in that first over, opened the bowling with Ravichandran Ashwin. But very positive stuff from Travis Head. He went after the spin bowlers, didn't allow them to settle, and stroked himself to a fine 49, not out of 53 deliveries. Manas Labuschagne contributing with 28 not out there as well. And Manas Labuschagne also contributed some runs in the first innings as well. So India are now, they still lead this Gavaskar Hadley Trophy, or Border Trophy, the Gavaskar Border Trophy. But now Australia, by winning this test match, has qualified for the championship final of the World Test Championship. So it's up to between India and I think Sri Lanka, who gets into the final. If Sri Lanka win 2-0 in New Zealand and India lose the next one, then Sri Lanka, I think, will go past them in the standings. So there's a bit of pressure on India going into the final test match in Ahmedabad. England's become the first touring side since the 2016-17 season to beat Bangladesh in an ODI series in Bangladesh. They won the second match of the series by 132 runs. Now, it was pretty good stuff from them. The man who starred for them, I think I've got a picture of him. Yeah, it's this man, Jason Roy. Anyway, so not since 2016-17, right, has international side come to Bangladesh and beat Bangladesh on their home ground. The last side to do it, none other than England. And funnily enough, they were being captained by Josh Buttler at that time. He was deputing for the then captain Owen Morgan, but now this is actually his first series win since taking on the job full time. I think the reigning world champions have also served notice that there will be a tough nut to crack later this year when they defend their title in India. They won this series without limited overs regulars like Ben Stokes, Joe Root, Johnny Bairstow, Jofra Archer, Harry Brook or Liam Livingstone. And this was Jason Roy's 12th or 13th century in ODI cricket. For some reason my tablet doesn't give me all the information that I need. Now, let's go back to that scoreboard and get rid of Jason Roy. Thank you. Okay, so there's the scoreboard. Actually, no, that's not the scoreboard at all. It's actually the commentary. But the 326 for 7, anchored by Jason Roy, who was man of the match, as you can see there. Also great bowling from the likes of Adil Rashid, who picked up 4 wickets to clean up the tail, and then 4 wickets at the top from Sam Curran. He picked up the first 3 wickets of the Bangladeshi reply when he had them reduced to 9 for 3 inside the 3rd over. There was really no coming back for Bangladesh after that, but Shakib Al Hassan and Mahmudullah, if they'd stuck around, you could have fancied Bangladesh's chances. But the fact that I think, despite the conditions, England were able to score that 326 for 7, that's mighty impressive. England really do seem to be playing the game at a different pace in all formats. ODI cricket, Test cricket, great 76 as well there from the skipper Jos Buttler, and scoring it well over a run-up ball, and then more runs towards the end of the innings. Sam Curran with 33 and Moeen Ali with 42. Great all-round match for Sam Curran, 4 wickets as well, but you can't argue with 132, can you? Now, there's some rugby this weekend. It's a big one. South African rugby fans, we've got 2 derbies to enjoy tomorrow. Where are they? And we were looking at this table yesterday. The DHL Stormers host the Cell C Sharks in the all-coastal clash, and the Vodacom Bulls welcome the Emirates Lions in the Yuxgate derby. Now, check there where Lions are, down in 12th place. They're out of the running for the playoffs, but they've come off that stirring win against the Glasgow Warriors. They should be pumped to get one over their more fancied neighbours. And of course, if they do beat the Bulls, Jake White's Chargers will be in something of a danger, perhaps, of missing out on the top 8. You know, what happens if Connacht wins? And Cardiff pull off a bit of a surprise. There's certainly quite a bit to be played for, and ideally the Bulls will host a home quarter-final. They need to get into the top 4 for that. So what I did today was, earlier today, I spoke to our rugby ace, Stephen Pettit, and asked him to rate the Lions' chances of, upsetting the apple cart when they travel to Loftus.
Look, I think at the end of the day, pound for pound, player for player, if there's nothing on the line, this Bulls side probably puts this Lions side away quite easily any other day. Pressure is a very strange thing, though, and I think that there has to be a certain amount of external factors which are going to play in. The Bulls are under a little bit of pressure because they have to be aware of the fact that they've slipped down from, they were 3rd, they were up there with Stormers quite a long time, and this recent run of form has really sort of, just blown the chance of, for example, a home playoff is now looking not as likely. And even the chance of potentially playoffs. So, as I said, 9 times out of 10, I think the Bulls win this quite comfortably, and I still would probably back them to get the job done. But I tell you what, if I'm the Lions, I would be sitting there thinking, you start well, you score, a couple of early tries, just create that doubt, create that sense of panic in that Bulls side, and anything can happen. Looking at the 2 teams, it's interesting as well. The Bulls have rotated a couple of players. It's a bit of a new look back line. Quite a few former Lions players actually obviously in that Bulls side. And it's the Lions side which will be feeling a bit about life after last week. But to be honest, I still think the Bulls will win. I do think there's a certain amount of extra sort of pressure on them due to sort of external factors rather than just playing the opponent ahead of them and getting playing situation as well.
Now, You talk about the squad rotation. I mean, if it's just pure rotation, it seems a bit weird doing the rotation ahead of a break. Yes, we've got the international training camps and the like coming up. But in terms of players who are forced out of this and the players who won't be paying for the Bulls, I mean, a couple of the sort of most influential attacking players from the Bulls are going to be missing. We've heard the coaching team saying we don't change our game plan. The Bulls' game plan, they've stuck to their guns. They've played some really, really nice rugby, but they have come up short. Do they make any changes for the Lions?
Yeah, so they have. I mean, so it's interesting because they say they don't change their game plan, but for me, if you look at particularly the backline changes, more Staines come in. So obviously a very different type of player to Chris Smith. But I think for me, what's quite interesting is the centre pairing has changed. David Creel has shifted from fullback into the centres. He's got Cornel Hendricks outside, so they've gone for very, very combative centres who I think are going to really target, especially Manny Rice outside the centre line. They're going to really look try and hit that channel. And moving Randile Sinasilani back to fullback, bringing in Sibongile Navuka on the wing, I think that they reckon they could also be looking on the counter-attack. I think they're looking at some very exciting outside backs, Sinasilani, Spooncorsi, Navuka, plenty of pace. So I personally think they are going to look to really sort of target that 13 channel of the Lions. And also I think that they're going to look to try and implement quite an aggressive kicking game with more Stain and almost sort of force the Lions to kick poorly, and the Lions don't match that. If there's space on the counter-attack, Similani is far more of an attacking fullback than maybe David Creel is in terms of finding extra space. He's far more involved maybe like Kirk Aronson, who will find that space, will look to attack the space. So I do think there will be slight sort of changes, and I think they've identified areas where they reckon they can beat the Lions.
So from that, I mean, if you're planning to kick the ball, you're planning to chase it, and you're planning to slow things down when you get there, I'm guessing the Bulls are expecting their forwards to play quite an important role in, pushing the Lions back.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think the Lions have always struggled when their pack hasn't pitched up. I do think at the moment the Packers, when it's playing well, it can be a sort of big point of difference. The scrum for me for the Lions is going to be very important. Dylan Smith's coming to the side for the Bulls, so he'll be playing against his former teammates. But Asante Tabakani has been absolutely brilliant at tight head for the Lions. I think from a tight five perspective, the Bulls have the edge. Interesting if you look at the loose chair, WJ Stenkamp has come in for Kyle Brink. But I also think it's quite a good loose chair from the Lions. There's no real duty, which is a big loss. Frankie Horn came back last week. It's a huge boost. And I think for me, what excites me about Lions is there is a lot of mobility in that pack. Not as much bulk as the Bulls. Bulls will look to try and bully them. But there's a lot of mobility in the pack all of a sudden when you've got Manchester Tuka at 6, when you've got Frankie Horn at 8. And I think that if those sort of players can find themselves in the fringes of the game, then that's maybe an area that the Lions can dominate. But at the end of the day, I think the Bulls will look to keep it quite tight generally and make sure that likes of Ulrich Lowe, Ruan Lokier, Jacques Duplessis are doing the bulk of the ball carry. WJ Stenkamp as well, Mark Verstappen. I think they'll also very much target the breakdown. I think that's where the Lions might come up a bit short. No, I think will mean that they'll be at the breakdown. I don't think they'll be as strong as they'd like to be.
Okay, talking about squad rotation, it's something that cost the Stormers a little bit perhaps when they went overseas, but they're still in a good position. 6 changes for the Stormers when they take on the Sharks, who've got a new look captain as well. Again, the Sharks, if they lose this one, they're fighting for their top 8. What kind of game can we expect to see? Because the Sharks are going to have to win this one, really.
Yeah, and interesting. I think the Sharks, a bit about the Bulls, they've named the 60 split, for example. They've gone very bottom squad, and they're looking at their bench. That's the big thing for me. I think they are looking to try and hang in that game. It's a very interesting side. Fez and Barton starting for the first time. Diam Lewis into the side. And you look at Luce Chersing was not just getting a start for the first time in a while. I think when they coming in, at 6, which was quite a strange change. But if you look at centres, it's a little bit like Wolves. They've got Johan Rensburg and they've got Mondo Kita, who 2 very solid, hard-hitting centres. And I think they're going to try and sort of really be quite aggressive in that centre channel against the Sharks. They've also got Fassi on the wing, which I think is also quite interesting. And I think that for me, is quite an intense move. The Stormers have rotated a couple of players, but I think it's very interesting some of the rotations they've gone with. I do think the Stormers have got a very nice pack in the coach Sharks. And at the end of the day, Moy Bach pitches up, and controls the game, then the Stormers should be okay. But Yeah, I think that the Sharks, they will look at that Stormers side and think, well, it's far from the best side, it's also far from the best Sharks side. But at the end of the day, the Stormers are playing to keep themselves at 2. The Sharks are playing to try and keep themselves in that top 8. The Sharks should want more, but the Stormers is a class side.
Yeah. I don't know if you bet on rugby at all, Stephen, but in terms of that, if you're putting your money on the line, and maybe you are, what's your call for these two ones?
I think you've got to back the home sides, and then you got to go Stormers Bulls. I don't see again watching that Sharks performance last week. I was very disappointed. I think that there's a lot wrong with that Sharks side, and for me, the biggest issue for them and the impending thing for them is their defense is very ordinary. You cannot have ordinary defense against the Stormers side, which will hurt any team. When there's a half a gap, they'll take it. That's what they're so good at doing. And again, the Bulls at Loftus, they'll dictate how things are going. I think the Lions will maybe make it tough. I'm hoping as well that the Bulls not having played for 2 weeks means they might be a little bit off the pace to begin with. The Lions did play last weekend, so it should be a little bit more match sharp. But I think if I was a betting man, I think going the two home sides is probably the safest bets.
Right. If there was one match that you look at in the Northern Hemisphere this weekend that is a must-see, which one of those is it?
The Munster match tonight, solely for the purpose of seeing Archie's name and Maker's return. I think in terms of the matches tonight, of this weekend, it might not be the match to watch, but Scarlets tonight, again, it's not a massive match, but to be able to see Archie's name back on the park, for me, that'll be great to see. In terms of good matches to watch, Edinburgh Leicester probably tomorrow would be my pick, or else potentially Cardiff Ulster. But it's always interesting watching Leinster without all their Irish stars. But for me, Munster Scarlets tonight, go and see what Archie Snaman can do, because if he's going to come to the World Cup or not, might well depend on how he goes in the next month or two.
And as far as Forever Rugby this weekend is concerned, what are you busy with?
Right, we'll be live tomorrow for both the local derbies. So I think 2:00 and 4:45 are the two games. It'll be myself as well. So everybody can come and hang out with me then. We'll keep an eye on what's happening in the Sevens. They're in Vancouver. So time-wise, a bit awkward. I think the first Blitzboss game is tomorrow at about 10:00, so kind of playing in the early hours. But we will try and keep an eye on what's going on there. And also, you'll also keep an eye out on sort of any news that happen. But the two URC local derbies will be our main focus this weekend.
Plenty of action coming up on Forever Sport over the weekend. F1 season starting, covering that. Also, as Stevie P said there, those two watch-alongs of the local derbies. Now, I kind of fancy the Lions. Now, Jake White, who's back, he looks as if he's just as healthy as ever after that health scare of his and that operation. But anyway, it was his turn to front up to the media ahead of that derby match. And is it squad rotation? A couple of players unavailable, and he's been speaking about the fact that all of the sides who are competing in the URC are under pressure to keep their players fresh because the season is pretty hectic. And he's given players time off, and he's mixing up his squad. He really does back the players in the squad to cover whatever happens. Now, in their last outing, they were beaten in front of that record crowd at Loftus by the Stormers, who, by some margin are, the most consistent and best team of the South African Conference in the first season and 3 quarters. But in terms of any improvements he's looking to get tomorrow, Jake White says it's just a question of execution. I don't know what happened with that. Let's see if we can do that. It's not being kind to me. Yeah. It should be. Oh, I see. Okay. Transition. Sorry. Let me see if I can actually get this to work. This is Jake White. Okay, clearly it's not doing that. No, that's not working. Maybe the clip I cut from Jake White speaking about Mornay Steyn, who is playing. He's been picked in the side tomorrow, and it's his benefit season. £1 from every ticket sold at Loftus between January and the end of the Bulls URC season, which they hope to take as deep as possible, will be going into Mornay Steyn's foundation, which is a nice one. And he's one of a couple of, really, really senior players in that side. Bismarck du Plessis is another one. And White's been speaking about the pressure that the senior players put him under. And he says it's the kind of pressure that the same players have been giving him in terms of selection since they first appeared on the scene.
Yes. Heinz, I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is the best players are the ones that don't want age to count. So if I remember correctly, Skalkberger, best player in the world, 21 years old. I mean, he didn't want to hear that his time was going to come. He wanted to play for South Africa when he was 21. John Smith wanted to be a Springbok when he was young. Bismarck du Plessis wanted to be a Springbok when he was young. And he didn't want me to use the phrase, your time will come. If they thought they were good enough, they put pressure on me as a coach. And I think the challenge then they become older. And then they say, please don't throw away experience, coach. And that's part of the challenge with Mornay. I mean, he's been unbelievably professional since I've been here. Yeah, he knows when Goosen and when Chris Smith are playing well, it's very difficult for him because he's finishing up. So if you're looking to plan, it's difficult for him because as competitive as he is and the nature of who he is, he doesn't want to be sitting in the stands. But I've got to compliment him, Heinz. He knows more than anybody what it's like. He didn't think he was going to play in a Lions series 12 years after the first one. He did. I've actually had a one-on-one with him, and I said, who knows? Maybe you kick the winning kick in the URC, and then you carry your kids off the field, and you have, you're riding a white horse out of Pretoria. But we can't plan like that. The reality is that life sport doesn't work like that. And as I said, he's utter professional, still fitness fanatic, still does all. Him and Bismarck du Plessis still win everything fitness-wise. Great role models for the youngsters. And I suppose I'm repeating myself. And their biggest challenge is the thing that they wanted are the things that they must expect the juniors below them want as well. And that's part of the management of what I have to manage them through as well, because they winners. And it's very difficult when you winners, as they've been, to accept sometimes that you might, you're coming to an end.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if I can get that Jake White speaking about any improvements for the Lions to work this time. You never know.
Yes. Heinz, I think one of the things that I've learned over the years.
Nah. Clearly, I've got a problem. Okay with that one. No hassle. What we will do is talk about this man. Rian Oberholzer has officially been appointed to the interim CEO of SA Rugby. We did say it was in the offing because he had confirmed it to one of the media organizations yesterday. I think it was Report that he'd been approached to be the interim CEO, and SA Rugby has confirmed that today. The temporary appointment. Hold on, where did I did put it in. Anyway, he's been appointed. Of course, he's in charge of Western Province as the rugby administrator. And one of his first tasks as interim CEO is to deal with the situation that Western Province Rugby is facing at the moment, actually, with those 12 rugby clubs which are unhappy about the role that SA Rugby is playing in Western Province Rugby. And they want SA Rugby to get out and let Western Province run everything themselves. Interested to know your thoughts on that. But it's our poll today, actually, on Forever Sport is, do you think that it's a good move by SA Rugby to have Rian Oberholzer as the interim CEO? He said it's only going to be an interim role, but I don't know. He may be under pressure if things go all right to stay on in the role. But the poll, when I checked it a short while ago, 65% of you supporting the fact that you think it's a good idea. Well, the guy's got a proven track record. Yes, the province went through some difficult times, but Oberholzer has proven history in various international tournaments and in a couple of other administrative roles in rugby. So, yeah, can't really argue that he's not the right person for the job. Now, let's move to some soccer news, and we kind of segue out of rugby because it's something that Welsh rugby was in turmoil over recently, was the fact that the players were about to strike. And remember, their Six Nations match against England nearly didn't go ahead because the players were threatening to strike. The Wales Rugby Union averted a player strike by agreeing to player demands. And something similar has happened in Canadian football. The country's players, the women's national team players, have succeeded in forcing Canada Soccer to agree to an interim funding agreement to pay them the same as the men. The players were forced to call off a strike in February due to threats of legal action by their employer, but the women kept up the pressure. One of the things they did was wearing these purple t-shirts you see on the screen with the caption "Enough is enough" on them before matches. That was in the recent She Believes Cup. They also threatened to boycott a camp in April if their demands for funding and equal pay were not met. Their actions also prompted the resignation of Canada Soccer's president earlier this week. The great thing about this is the Canadian men's team has been behind this initiative as well. In fact, the Canadian men last year went on strike in support of their female counterparts. So that's pretty much a win, I reckon, for the women. It's only an interim measure. Their last pay agreement with Canadian Soccer expired, I think, at the end of 2021. So they've basically been without one for more than a year. And finally, player power comes to the party for them. So let's now talk about golfing action. And we will go to what's happening in South Africa. Sweden's Moa Folk carded a round of 63. That's 8 under par at the Modderfontein Golf Club today to take the lead of the Joburg Ladies Open. I'm going to pull up the scorecard just now. It is a Ladies European Tour event. She leads Denmark's second round leader Nicole Broch Estrup by 3 strokes ahead of tomorrow's final round. Let me just pull up that scorecard. It's here somewhere. I don't believe it. I think I've actually deleted it. And that's not very good. Anyway, what I will do though is we'll go and hear from the leader of this event, Moa Folk, after that round. And she's been speaking to the Ladies European Tour about it.
I played really well today, so I'm very happy. Now the wind's a little bit different today, so I was quite nervous on the tee shot, not really knowing, and then I got in the rough, but got a really good lie. Then I was in between clubs, but then I just picked one and hit, and it looked really good, and to see it go in is such a fun feeling. I putted really well, but then I've also given myself a lot of chances today, so it's been overall great.
Can't argue with that. Here we go. I think I have got the scorecard coming up now, but it's going to take so long to maybe. Okay, no, we're going to go back to Moa Folk talking about the confidence that she's got at the moment because she's actually a winner recently. She's been out in South Africa for a couple of weeks now, and at the beginning of last month she won the Dimension Data Pro-Am, and then just last weekend she was 5th at the Joburg Ladies Classic. So she's in a good space. She also loves the Modderfontein layout, which is quite long, but she can drive them quite far.
So much. Getting to win a few weeks ago on the Sunshine Tour gave me so much confidence, knowing that I can play well on even on that tour and here as well. And to prove that to myself today is extra special. It sets up for me nicely. I hit it pretty long, so I can reach the par fives, and then have a lot of wedges in. So yeah, love the course.
Yeah, clearly she is playing rather well there. That's 66 today. So 2-stroke leads going into the final round. Yeah, we'll have to see how that works out. Oh, I see that I gave you erroneous information about. You see, I'm looking at the wrong score, the wrong leaderboard, aren't I? Yeah, that doesn't help. No, the round 3 scoreboard, please. Okay, there we go. That looks better. Mo Folk leading after a 65, 2 strokes clear of Nicole Broch. Clara Davidson, Spilkova, the Czech Republic, they're at 9 under par. Kira Floyd of South Africa is in a share of 4th at 7 under par. And how's this for consistent golf by Nicole Garcia? 3 rounds of 71. Now, South Africa's top golfer, Ashley Highs, moved into a share of the HSBC Women's World Championship, 5th place in Singapore, second round 67. She's now 2 strokes off the lead. Halfway leader is American Danielle Kang, who stormed up the leaderboard with the best round of the day, which was an 8 under par 63. Let's go and check in on what's happening on the PGA Tour. And this is the Arnold Palmer Invitational we're looking at. And the South African contingent, well, they do need to pull something out of the hat in the second round if they're going to make the projected cut, which I think at the beginning of the round was set to be level par. That will move around depending on how the course is playing today. But you can see there, Garrick Higo and Christian Bezuidenhout 1 over par. Tristan Lawrence 4 over par. See, Garrick Higo's already played 12 rounds. The lead is at 8 under par. America's Kurt Kitayama there, 2 strokes clear of Davis Riley. And winner last week, was it last week or the week before? John Ram, I think it was last week. And Patrick Cantley, Adam Scott, well, there's a name from the past. And also on the PGA Tour is the Puerto Rico Open. And the South Africans doing a little bit better there, albeit in a different field, of course. Yes, Eric van Rooyen at 5 under par, MJ Defoe at 2 under. Although the leader, Carson Young, there you can see is at 13 under par. So work to be done. Now in Formula One, Formula One's longest ever championship starts this weekend. That's in Bahrain. And if free practice is anything to go by, Red Bull's rivals may have a lot of catching up to do, but there's a bit of a surprise, actually. Now, Sergio Perez posted the fastest time in the first session of that, but he was the only driver to lap the 5.412K circuit in less than a minute 33. Two-time world champion Fernando Alonso, well, he underlined his class by, let me take you back here while I do that. He underlined his class by being second quickest in the first session. He was also more than a second per lap faster than his new teammate Lance Stroll, mind you. Now, Stroll, although he did miss the test session last week because of that fractured wrist, so maybe he was in a bit of pain today. Now, the world champion Max Verstappen was then, I think, third fastest. And as for the Mercedes in that first session, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell in the 2 Mercedes, well, they were more than 2 seconds off the pace. And the second free practice has just wrapped up a few minutes ago, and if we look at those lap times now, look at that. Fernando Alonso topping the timesheets in that with a time of 1 minute 30.907, and Max Verstappen there in second place, Sergio Perez in third. This is just practice, qualifying to come tomorrow, but that certainly is pretty impressive stuff from Alonso, and I think Lance Stroll, who's picked up the pace to be within just over 0.5 seconds of his teammate. Anyway, we'll leave it there for the daily wrap on Forever Sports this week. Slowly smoothing out the wrinkles, not these ones because they're not going away at all. But I hope you'll join me again next week when we do it all again here on the daily wrap on Forever Sport. Ciao.